Good morning, and thanks for joining us for the Microsoft Security Tech Talk on a 24/7 Microsoft SOC, Build or Buy. My name's Phoebe, and I'm the events coordinator here at Softworks. I'll first cover off some housekeeping as we kick off. If you've not got a coffee, you've still got a couple minutes to grab one now as we wait for the last couple to join us. Please note the webinar is recorded. You'll receive a copy of the webinar afterwards if you'd like to go back to it. And finally, there's a chance to ask questions in the Q&A panel at any point, and those will be addressed at the end. We'll also share a quick 1-minute survey at the end, so please fill that in to help us improve the Tech Talks in the future. Good morning, and thanks for joining us for the Microsoft Security Tech Talk. Everyone's on a 24/7 but ready to get started. Build or buy. Thanks again for joining us. Today's Tech Talk is presented by our technical director, talking about a 24/7 Microsoft SOC. Before we start, we're going to do a quick poll to see where you all are on your Security Operations Centre journey. So follow the link in the Q&A chat and please use the game pin provided to join. So while I wait for you to sign up, here's a quick introduction to Softworks' popular Microsoft Security Tech Talks, if this is the first one of them you've joined. So the Microsoft Security Tech Talks are designed to keep your organization on top of the latest Microsoft security stack. These webinars are free technical workshops, semi-structured, and include some slides. The Microsoft Security Tech Talks happen on the third Tuesday of every month, which we call Tech Talk Tuesday. They've covered many hot security topics so far, including Defender for Microsoft 365, Microsoft Sentinel, Cloud App Security, Zero Trust, and Privileged Access Management. You can catch up on all of our previous Tech Talks on our website. So here's a brief intro to Softworks. Softworks has been a Microsoft Gold partner for over 20 years and is a leading Microsoft cloud security provider, specializing in 24/7 managed security support to mid-market organizations with our Microsoft Secure 365 solution built on Microsoft's technology stack and our dedicated SecOps team based at our HQ here in Cambridge. So now we've got the results from the poll. We can see some of you have built your own 24/7 SOC. So I'll just now introduce the presenter, Adrian Becker, Technical Director at Softworks. Adrian Becker has been with Softworks since 2002, during which time he has built up a deep understanding of our business and how we can most effectively help our clients. He has over 20 years experience working with Microsoft and over 10 years experience at C-level. His extensive experience, together with having completed both IT and business degrees, means he has the insight ability to successfully bridge the gap between technical, commercial, and compliance requirements. At this point, I'll now hand over to Adrian to take you through today's main presentation.
Apologies. Apparently, I've just been ejected by Teams, so let's continue. And from a point of view to ensure that the stakeholders feel secure, one of the questions or technical terms you will also hear quite often is mean time to detect. So that's how long does it take you to detect an incident, and mean time to respond. How long does it take you to respond to an incident? So with Microsoft, for example, we find that their mean time to detection is about 3.6 minutes. That is literally from an incident detected to it being reported, 3.5 minutes for all the correlation to be done, all the information put together, and then that alert to be generated. What is then absolutely critical is how long does it take your engineering staff or your team to respond to those alerts? And finally, it is also to help reduce the cost, because at the end of the day, if you have an incident or you have an issue with a incident that's happened, it can interrupt the business, which means that you can't transact, or you've got to inform your stakeholders that you have been compromised. What has changed is, according to as of June this year, Microsoft has become the leader in what we call SIEM, Security Incident and Event Management. Where they started off developing Sentinel a few years ago, they have now moved up, as we can see, according to Gartner, as a leader. They have overtaken Splunk, Exabeam, Rapid7. And what this has meant is, previously, for any organization to even try running a security operations center, is that they needed to invest significant amounts of money into the environment before they could even start thinking about developing some sort of security operations system. With Sentinel, you can literally turn it on and pay for what you use. The first 30 days are free, and after that you only pay for the volume of data you ingest, which is quite a unique approach considering that most of the other vendors that currently exist out there wants to have an upfront commitment for a significant number of events without actually accurately knowing what you will be providing into the environment and what events will be coming in. What this has meant is, and what we've seen is that the Security Operations Center is now really available to everyone. Doesn't matter if you're 50 users, right up to 100,000 and above. So what we also get asked is, well, why Microsoft? Well, if we look at Gartner, Microsoft is spending £25 billion in security. They keep investing, and if we just go and look at Gartner or Forrester, you will see that they have moved into the leader quadrant in most of the solutions. And we are seeing with other vendors that they are really struggling to differentiate themselves. You will hear responses like, we are just better, or trust us. But from a point of view from the industry, we've seen that you might have a product that's best in class for that particular workload. But for an organization to be able to see all of the risks across a whole organization, Microsoft has become the leader and de facto standard in providing you with that single pane of glass. What Microsoft uses for a Security Operations Center is 3 different technologies, and we will look at these in a little bit more detail. It leverages Azure Sentinel, which brings across all of the information from Microsoft 365 Defender, which includes Defender for Cloud, which Defender for Office, sorry, too many defenders. Defender for Office, which looks at all of your Office security emails coming in, sign-ins, everything to do with the user environment, SharePoint, OneDrive, cloud apps. And then you also got Microsoft 365 Defender Business or Endpoint, which provides intelligence across from the endpoints. For your Azure or cloud environment, we leverage something called Defender for Cloud, and it itself has about 11 different Defender for sections in the cloud environment. But again, all of that information is fed through into Azure Sentinel, which allows us to provide what we call the extended defense and response, detect and response, because from a point of view, we are now able to detect all of these different alerts, signals, correlate that, and only highlight where action needs to be taken, where there's a potential incident that is affecting your organization. We will touch on 365 Defender, but I think one thing I would say for organizations is go and have a look at your environment, look at your 365 Defender, ensure that you at least run a secure score of 80%. But again, this is the portal for you to see what is happening in your organization. And as we said with Defender for Cloud, that effectively gives you all of your Azure environments, and they also explain where you got to take action, or is there potential threats in your cloud environment that you're not aware of. Microsoft Sentinel brings all of that together, and from a point of view with Sentinel, what you will have is you'll get all of the alerts feeding into your organization in real time, and based on that, incidents you'll be able to look at incidents, you'll be able to go and do some advanced threat hunting, and you will be really able to action any of the alerts that comes into the environment. And what it brings together is all of your different log sources, correlates those rules, and then highlights where your security analysts need to spend their time and investigate further to see if there's a potential breach or potential anomaly happening inside the organization. What Softworks has done is we've created a secure 365, and what that is a layered defense across your environment. So with Secure 365, what we are able to do is take all of the signals we get from Defender for Cloud, the 365 Defender, which includes things like identity, cloud apps, as we said, bring that all together into Microsoft Sentinel in your own environment and correlate all of those alarms, rules, and incidents, which then highlights where you have issues that's happening in the organization. What Softworks then do is we get a window into your environment and are able to respond to every incident securely without needing to extract data or take data out of the organization. What this means is when we publish a rule, it appears in all of the tenants and all of the customers that we manage, but also we are able to help customers where we see threats happening across different tenants and publish mitigation rules or detection rules into those environments. The team will then look at all of those incidents that are coming in and respond to those incidents. And what that will mean is, where appropriate, they will manage and mitigate against that risk, or where needed, will be able to effectively communicate with our customer or with the organization's representatives to be able to understand what's happening with that case and deal with that specific incident. This is provided absolutely critical to most businesses, because being able to run and monitor this on a 24/7 basis is very difficult, or you need a large set of teams, or actually in most organizations we're finding even up to a few thousand users, is that they don't have the skills. They don't have the large enough team. The teams are doing multiple different roles. So not only are they looking after security, they are also responsible for the day-to-day operations. So from there, and the skill sets that they are finding is quite different between security and infrastructure management or operations management. So what I'm going to do now is stop talking about slides and get into the more interesting parts and actually run through a few pieces of what is the art of what's possible in security, where Microsoft is at the moment with security, and show you some examples. And please, as we go through this, don't hesitate to ask questions. So where I'm going to start firstly is just where we mentioned is on the security page. This is basically where all of your Defender for cloud, all of your Defender for endpoint information is correlated. And what is always a good place to start when I speak to organizations are just go and look at your secure score. Just understand what is your secure score, how exposed are you, and do you need to take any actions that can immediately help mitigate against your risks in the environment. And ironically, the majority of licenses for most organizations is included and can be leveraged to help improve your score. The other areas that what Microsoft are now doing is they provide you with full vulnerability management. So again, you can very quickly see what is your vulnerability across the estate, because what we are seeing is not only is it when we have breaches that it's happening because of phishing emails, for example, but it's normally to do with technology that is not been patched or that's been left open. So again, being able to have the screen or visibility of what your exposure is live every day of new threats that is coming out or new vulnerability is absolutely critical to the organization, because let's be honest, the technology gets patched daily, new vulnerabilities gets published, and everybody talks about zero-day threats. Yes, they are important. Yes, they are absolutely critical. But the majority of the breaches that we are seeing is actually old vulnerabilities that's been detected, where people just haven't bothered to patch their environment, or didn't think about it, or didn't know that they had the application. So just being able to run and view all of the software that you have in your organization is absolutely critical, and you can get a live view of what is happening in the business to see what needs patching. And this just gives you a very quick, healthy view of what's happening, and also helps you achieve cyber essentials. You can, for example, as well see what browser extensions are plugged into the organizations. Again, what this will mean is you are able to see the browsers extensions that's being used and make a decision. Are they legitimate? Are you happy for them to being used, or should you look at potentially mitigating against those environment or information? But by having Defender for Endpoint on the workstations or on the live machines means that we get live telemetry information from all of the workstations or endpoints. And if I take an example here from somebody, and I will find out who I just clicked on, and hopefully Microsoft is being kind to me and load the pages relatively quickly today, as this is live data and not demo. But what we can see here, for example, is you can see a machine that has been logged on, that they have the information, what recommendations or vulnerabilities exist, and more importantly, the live information that is sent to us from that workstation. So what that means is that as a machine is clicked on or working, every single activity on that particular workstation is recorded live and sent to basically to Defender for Business or Defender for Endpoint system. What this then will do is correlate all of these in these specific incidents. And if I open one up, we can see that we get a significant amount of detail regarding what was clicked, what was executed, what was written to memory, and all of this information is recorded. Once this is correlated and an incident detected, you will find that you get alerts generated in the environment for you to be to action, and also incidents that you need to start dealing with from a point of view. And what we can do here, for example, is you can see incidents that has been detected and needed to be dealt with. So I can show some examples. So every single type of incident will be recorded. This includes things like potential hacking tools being run or port scans that's running on your environment, but it gives a live feed regarding feeds that's coming in. And we get the same out of technology like Defender for Cloud. But what we then have is this is just one part of your attack surface. What we then do is, or what Microsoft then suggests, is you actually link this all back into Microsoft Sentinel. And what Sentinel will do is take not only your cloud feeds or your endpoint feeds, but all of the security threat intelligence that you have in your environment and bring that together into a single pane of glass for you. So where I will start is with connectors. So if we look at data connectors, Microsoft currently support 124 connectors out the box, and these gets added on a daily basis almost. We're seeing them expanding these connectors constantly as new solutions are brought out. For example, there's a new connector that will be coming for the Microsoft's external attack surface management, which will again show you what is the potential risks that can be viewed from outside the business. But if I click on here to start with, just on connected, what we can see, for example, in this our particular environment, as a number of devices are connected or intelligence sources. So we get signals from Azure Active Directory, identity, information protection from the key vaults, DNS, Dynamics, firewalls. Again, majority of firewalls can send their logs directly into Sentinel for correlation. Defender, Power BI, Office 365, syslogs, events, but also what you can see is if I click on the not connected sources, you will have other sources that you can bring in. For example, Darktrace, Apache, Aruba, Wi-Fi systems, Azure firewalls, etc., Cisco, Citrix, F5. There's a significant number of these logs, threat intelligence that you can bring in. And on top of that, you can also bring in traditional syslog connectors. Once the data is ingested, what you'll have is all of the data being brought into the environment and all of the signals recorded. And we can see, for example, in the last 24 hours, we've had 3.2 million events come in and a number of alerts. What with the correlation then is taking place, incidents gets created. And what these incidents do is, and I'm just going to highlight some closed incidents, as the team has been very efficient and there's currently no standard outstanding incidents. But if we look at some closed incidents, and these are in the last 24 hours, a number of incidents are being reported into the environment, and we can see that some of these come in at like 2 o'clock in the morning. So if we bring this up, this particular one, and I have no idea what I'm about to look at, is want to take a look at the information. We can see that we had a exploit kit that was trying to see if there's a vulnerability in any of the gateways that is running into the environment. So if I click on investigate, we can start viewing where was that coming from, what was the IP address that it came from, what was the incident that they were, what was it trying to exploit. We can see it was a log4j vulnerability scan that was coming in, and the team investigated the IP to see if it's been previously seen, what do they know about it, and we can see there's been some related alerts. But if we go back into the incident, we can see that effectively what the team has done was a event that's seen, and they have taken the action to block it on the FortiGate firewalls, which means that moving forward, no further potential exploits from that IP address will be accepted. And we're seeing more and more of these type of incidents that is happening, and we can see that they happen at all times of the day. There isn't a specific time anymore that it's actually happening between 8 and 5. And if we go back to further, we will see that this is now happening on a 24/7 basis. So where previously you could just have alerts coming into your system, it's just not good enough anymore. Unfortunately, the criminals don't sleep. They work around the world. They are constantly trying to find exploits into the environments of all Microsoft customers, or all customers, to be honest. And we're seeing more and more that this risk of that exploit happening or a breach occurring getting higher. So from organizations' point of view, they need to be able to respond to these potential threats and deal with them very, very quickly. What we can then as well see is the teams can go and do some additional threat hunting, which means that you can run queries against all of that information and retrieve further changes. So for example, have we seen what users has been added? What type have we found that IP address in any previous connections that's come into the organizations in the last week, 2 weeks, 6 months, for however long you keep your data. For some organizations, they only keep it for the free 30 or 90 days that Microsoft provides in Sentinel, where I've got other customers who keeps it for 1 year, 2 year, depending on what their compliance regulations are. What I am going to do is, as we just touched on so very quickly on Sentinel, is look a little bit more in depth at the live last 30-day report. What this shows is over the last 30 days, the number of incidents that's occurred. So we can see for, this is for us ourselves, we've had 445 incidents over the last 30 days, and they range depending on which day of the week it is. For example, you can see on Sunday, because it's weekend, we had a significant attack on that particular weekend. And we've noticed that as well, that it doesn't, these incidents aren't just happening Monday to Friday. They are happening 7 days a week. And that's what's changed as well, because you cannot just think, well, we've been secure from Monday to Friday, I can take the weekend off. Unfortunately, there is no more respite from looking after threats. If I then go down, we talked about incident by severities. And if we look at this, for example, how long does it take us to actually triage an incident? And this is absolutely critical when you look at security operation centers or looking at some sort of incident. It's great knowing that the incident has been detected. As I said, Microsoft's mean time to detection is roughly 3.5 minutes, and anything below 5 minutes is classed as excellent for most of the technologies out there. But what you then have is, how long does it take you to respond to that incident? How long does it take you to triage that incident? And that becomes very critical, because actually, once that incident occurs, the potential criminals are inside your system. They are starting to run encryption. They are starting to hunt for passwords. They are starting to hunt for weaknesses in your environment. And you need to be able to start investigating and make a decision what you want to do. For example, isolate the environment, or do you want to stop that connection from running? And I will touch a little bit more on the actual response. So as we can see here, triage time, typically 3 minutes for high incidents, 4 minutes for medium, informational 8, because it is really just informational. But it is absolutely critical to understand what those incidents were. How long did it take to close those incidents? Again, it's got to be measured. Why was it take? What was the top type of incidents that we've seen coming in, just to help you, the organization, understand what those threats and risks are to the business. Because again, it could be that we're seeing significant connections to the firewalls, or we could see potential issues around somebody running brute force attacks, and that's a common one where we see brute force attacks against accounts that's not been disabled, or accounts that's been excluded from MFA. That's a good example of potential breaches that's happened. And what we are seeing more of as well is where the actual administrator accounts are targeted. They're on Microsoft admin accounts, which drives things like Azure, which drive things like the Office 365. Because once they're in as administrator, they can go and turn off a significant number of alerts and security that's been built into the system. So once an incident has been detected in the environment, a response can be undertaken. So if I go back into the endpoint, find the device, what you can then have is on that particular device, and I'll choose somebody else this time, you'll be able to respond. And what the people can do is either, for example, isolate the device, or what they can do as well is run some investigation, get forensic information, initiate a live response to start investigating further, or potentially interrupt that incident that's happening, or restrict the app from executing. What that means, if it's not signed by Microsoft, that app will be blocked from running. But what this gives the security team chance is to be able to look at the incident, understand how it happened, and is it alive? And depending on what they are finding, they might just hit isolate on the device, just purely because you want to block it, and it's much easier to ask for forgiveness than leave a significant risk in the business. Other items can be done is like run antivirus, or and again look at those devices and where else have we seen that threat. That is just a very quick whistle stop tour of what you are capable with Sentinel, Defender for Endpoint. And as we said earlier, Microsoft has made a significant investment around the technology and the capability, and the fact that they've included all of this technology into small business, and for small businesses with the business premium licenses, or for Microsoft 365 enterprise customers with the security add-on, means that all of the technology you need is available, leading technology, and able for your team to action. What I'm going to do now is just touch on incident. This was a real life incident where we had it with a customer. They were running a different gateway solution and a different antivirus, but Microsoft Defender for Endpoint was installed on the environment as well. And what we were able to do is detect that there was a potential breach happening, and we could see that the network was being scanned, and data was being collected, looking for password hashes, weak passwords in the Active Directory. The team was able to identify the device, engage immediately with the technicians at the particular organization, and manage to isolate the device in 5 minutes, and after that take it off the network and ensure that no further damage has occurred. But this is a good example where the technology was in place, the detection was there, but if there was nobody to actually watch or respond to this particular incident, this would have just gone on and stayed on the network, because it was great that we've been alerted, but if you don't respond to it, that alert means nothing to the business really from a point of view, because you need someone to do that and look after their environment. So in summary, should you build or buy a SOC? Well, I think for a number of the customers that we deal with and find there's a number of challenges around what you should be doing. Firstly, everybody should have a security operations center, and Microsoft has made that available. The question then comes in, where do you sit with your risk appetite? Because as we can see, without security, an attack can take minutes, which means that they can move quite quickly through the network and then have days and months where they can use to exfil data, gather intelligence on the business to do the most significant damage and provide you with the best chance of you paying the ransom. And I am going to touch on ransoms a little bit before we continue, because what we have seen is there's a big drive from organizations who buy cyber insurance, for example. Well, we've bought cyber insurance, it is covered in our policy. Well, the advice now is that insurance companies won't pay the ransoms anymore, because they will help you recover, but they won't necessarily pay the ransom anymore to get the decryption keys or prevent the data from being leaked out on the internet. So they will, and that's quite a key differentiator, because previously the policies was quite comprehensive, whereas now they are trying to reduce the risk, and they will, and I've just seen the latest update that they won't actually pay out on anything that they class as a state actor or an act of war cyber attack. So that's also getting interesting. The reasons on why they shouldn't pay is becoming higher, and what they are looking for is things like cyber essentials. Do you do penetration tests? Do you have a security operations center? And we're starting to see that becoming the norm. Also, if we look at your risk gradient again, if we talk about risk detection, if we can detect that quickly, as I showed, we can respond to that incident quickly and it can be remediated. That reduces your cost and potential loss to the business significantly, because you do not have to worry about the system being interrupted or your business taken down for days, months, or weeks while it's being recovered. So if you are thinking about, should I build it or buy, just think about a few items. How long is it going to take you to respond? Because if it's taking more than an hour, and I'm going to use somewhere between 5 minutes and an hour maximum, then you potentially have a problem, because the dwell time that the threat is in the network is quite long. How many people am I going to need to be able to do that on a 24/7, 365 basis? Well, we've seen for most organizations, you need at least 12 analysts. That is to be able to run that as a business. That's at least £500,000 just to be able to have somebody watch it. On top of that is finding that skill levels, finding the people that has the knowledge to correlate those rules, being able to help you threat hunt for those environments, and then being able to respond to the specific incidents. And that's what we are seeing more of, is that the ability to find the skills and to be able to respond and being able to know what you're looking at. Because previously our IT manager would be doing it, or the person who's responsible for IT can deal with it. It's a different skill set. It's a different ability. It's not to say they can't look at an incident, but if they don't do it day in and day out, it takes a long time. So for most organizations, this becomes a dedicated team. So where I am, or where Softworks is with Secure 365, our recommendations is if you are a SME, small medium business, up to about 2,000 seats, typically, which we say class days is somewhere between 50 and 2,000, is that you should look at outsourcing your information. Leverage the Microsoft stack. You've already paid for that. Get rid of a lot of these third-party apps and reinvest that money into being able to have your environment monitored. And if we look at some of the examples that we have here, an organization with 100 users, it will cost them £12,000 a year to have somebody monitor their environment and respond to all incidents. That is £1,000 a month to be able to deal with these security incidents and being able to understand what is happening and mitigate against those risks. For organizations of 250 seats, the cost will be about 30,000 a year. That's less than a single analyst. So from most businesses that we deal with, most organizations that's taking up the service, they find it's a very, very cost-effective way to have their systems monitored and have the peace of mind that on a 24/7 basis, they are secure. And where we need to, the SOC analysts will wake up the IT manager at 3 o'clock in the morning. But from their point of view, they can go home on the Friday and know that somebody's still looking after the business, that they're not going to come in on Monday and find that the whole organization is on its knees and not working. So hopefully with today, you've seen the art of what's possible with Microsoft. So from my point of view, I've got a few key takeaways here today, which is to leverage your Microsoft investment, as they are the leader, they are the de facto security provider out there, and most organizations are already invested. What we are seeing is a lot of partners are scared of Microsoft because it find that they are replacing a lot of the third-party vendors, but do go and question, why haven't you replaced some of your third-party vendors with the Microsoft solutions? Don't ignore your security. It is absolutely a 24/7 activity. And definitely, but lastly, start getting a SOC in your organizations. It was just the large enterprises, but now anybody can go and turn on their security center, get their environment configured to build a secured operation center. I'm just going to finish with a few small items, is to take a minute to fill in the survey that the team has published. You can also find our previous tech talks, and if you want a more in-depth demo instead of this quick overview, please don't hesitate to book it, and I think the link will be available. What I'm going to do now is see if we have any questions, and I will ask Phoebe to read out if we've got any questions.
Yeah, so we've got a couple questions in. The first one is, we are using a different antivirus solution. Can we still use the Microsoft Defender and the SOC?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we saw earlier, when I looked at the data connectors, Defender will run next to any existing antivirus solution, because Microsoft, it's built into the operating systems of most of the Windows operating systems, and you get agents that will sit next to other antivirus providers. So we have customers, and there is customers who use different solutions. But what we are finding is once they've run Defender for a while, they tend to move away from those third-party solutions because you double spending or double investing. But absolutely, yes, you can. You can run Defender next to any other antivirus solution.
Great, thank you. Another one is, we are trying for a Microsoft approach, but have no idea where to start. What can you advise?
Yes, I've seen that sometimes all the organizations has tried to move into a Microsoft first approach, but they're struggling to actually understand. Where I would suggest you start is let's look at getting a security audit completed of your 365 environment to really understand where you are. Let's get a survey booked in. We can do an audit of the environment and then help build a roadmap for you to adopt and implement the Microsoft security. Because for most customers, it's understanding what those licenses are, see how far they already got on the journey and which features they have turned on or haven't turned on, and then just making sure they leverage their existing investment. So please reach out to myself and we can book some workshop and then look potentially at the security audit.
Great, thank you. And the last question I can see is, how quickly can the SOC be implemented?
Absolutely, that's a very good question. A security operations center. So with the Microsoft Security Operations Center, it just depends how far you are along the journey with Microsoft. But for most security operations centers, we typically say it takes a month to onboard. And why do we say a month? Well, firstly, we want to make sure you get all the security signals into Sentinel. You want to make sure those feeds come through quickly and efficiently. Then we want to create some correlation rules just to understand what is normal for your environment. Also publish our additional rules and threat hunts, additional intelligence so that the team can threat hunt and understand potential gaps in the environment. And then after a month, the service, your environment will be fully normalized with all the signals coming in and being able to operate on a 24/7 basis. So what we normally say, duration is typically a month to implement, but some organizations you can go and turn on Defender right now on your portal, go and turn on Sentinel, get those feeds connected, and you will see some information coming through. Any other questions?
That's it, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, and apologies for the slight technical incident in the middle of the slides. We look forward to seeing you, and as I say, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you very much.